So a while ago, I disputed SuperCarlin's super casual, super simplistic look at the Jedi Code, in which they don't look at what the Jedi actually believe and just go off the code at face value, taking things literally, and it was an extremely annoying video to watch. Again, SuperCarlinBrothers is an easy target, but they are representative on how a lot of casuals think about Star Wars. Well, shock and horror, they made a follow-up talking about the Sith Code. The video is literally called "We Are All Sith," and he does the same damn thing. He didn't even try to improve on his original video about the Jedi. His basis for the video is to read off the Sith Code, interpret it in the most positive way possible, and then make some sort of statement about how, aside from the first part of the code, it's a great code to live by, and how it encourages one to better themselves and gain ultimate victory. The Sith Code was introduced in 2003's Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic. Since that game delved a lot into who the Sith were and their ideology and whatnot, the Code of the Sith gets a full explanation from the character Euthura Ben in the game if the player wishes to learn Sith ideology. This is an obvious thing to say, but still worth saying to those who don't understand Star Wars. The Sith are evil. The nature of the dark side and the ideology of the Sith inevitably lead to terrible things, such as oppressive empires, slavery, genocide, and other horrible crimes. The dark side caused the Sith, if they ever had a heart beforehand, to completely forget who they once were. The dark side was a trap that promised all who gave into it the fulfillment of their greatest selfish desires. Sith always became completely disillusioned with morality. The more they used the dark side, the more they'd keep going down a bottomless hole. And nothing was too horrible that they wouldn't do in the pursuit of ultimate power. Ultimate power, however, is an impossible goal for the Sith. Many Sith, for example, desired to live forever, but they could never achieve it, at least not without fault. Darth Sion, for example, had a way to live forever, but he was always in constant, awful pain for the rest of his life before he was convinced that death wasn't such a terrible thing, and he allowed himself to die. In contrast with the Jedi, the Sith ignored what was best for the galaxy by ignoring the will of the Force, something I've discussed in previous videos, and instead imposed their own will on the Force, making it do what they wanted. The problem is that since the will of the Force was the collective consciousness of all life in the galaxy, it always knew greater than any one person. Being a Sith is about the individual, and only the individual. Nothing else matters. Only yourself and your personal power is all that matters according to the Sith. With that being said, let me explain the Sith Code specifically, and see how much SuperCarlinBrothers screwed up with their ignorant hot take. So Carlin starts his video by describing the previous video, in which he calls the Jedi hypocrites, and opts to start reading the Sith Code with the idea that you're better off going off the Sith Code than the Jedi Code. Already, I'm sweating bullets because this guy's going to do the exact same thing as last time. He again confirms that he's only going off the movies and the Clone Wars, which again is a massive mistake given the code he'll be assessing, again, was introduced in neither of these entries. But let's be real, this is the kind of fan who has no idea what a Revan is. He continues to misexplain the light and the dark side. Given the content this guy published in the following years relating to Star Wars, I doubt he knows about the Journal of the Wills or any of that stuff. The only redeemable part of this video is his entertaining quippiness. But anyone who understands the universe will be scoffing at this video from this super filthy casual. So alas, he assesses the code at face value. The only thing he disagrees with is the obvious "peace is a lie" part, but he brushes that under the rug and talks about the parts he does agree with. I hate this kind of mentality. If you don't follow the whole Sith Code, then you're not really a true Sith, are you? I've read the Darth Bane trilogy, and the main motivation for Bane destroying the Brotherhood of Darkness is that he saw it as a disgrace to the ideology of the Sith, and he was right. Lord Khan proposed that all the Sith in his regime were equals, and that none of them would claim the Darth title for that reason. The Sith holocron of Revan taught Bane this, and inspired him to create the Rule of Two. I've discussed this a bit in my reviews of the books, but the point is, this is such a flawed mentality. The very ideology of the Sith dictates that you either believe in all the tenets, or you're not a true Sith. So this guy literally ignores the peace is a lie part, and talks about the remaining parts of the code. But first, let's talk about peace is a lie, there is only passion. The Sith Code is speculated to have been made in direct opposition to the Jedi, as the Jedi believe there is no emotion, there is peace. In contrast, the Sith believe that peace only leads to stagnation. There always has to be conflict for life to move forward. It's the only way to the Sith. This ties into how the Sith merely argue that the way they conduct themselves is just nature, the way of the universe. This is the justification the Sith give for causing chaos, that it's a necessary evil essentially. Now that we've got the only part Carlin disagrees with out of the way, let's see his extremely embarrassing surface level assessment. So we've got, through passion, I gain strength. He talks about how the code in this regard is more honest than the Jedi, and how being passionate in general always gives you strength, and of course he misses out on what the words mean. So when the Sith say that, they always seek to challenge and oppose stagnation, as mentioned earlier, which is why Carlin's selective assessment of the code is flat out stupid. From the perspective of the Sith, the Jedi do the opposite. They're too afraid to change stagnation, so they live by a lie. Of course, it's the Sith that doesn't understand. It's known that the will of the Force always knew better than any one person, and that's why the Jedi follow it. The will of the Force always knows better. Following the will of the Force is selfless in nature. The thing that draws those to the dark side is the fulfillment of the user's selfish desires. It's a bottomless hole for one to be consumed in. So yeah, to sum it up, this line of the code is to cause chaos in the illusion that progress will be made with the universe. It isn't about solely bettering oneself through passion, as Carlin seems to push. He also seems to think that passion through the dark side also means getting better with something you care about. Here's the thing though, the Sith only care about themselves. The only thing they'll grow to care about at that is their personal power. In the real world, you can be passionate and it reflects positively onto others. But that's not what the Sith believe. If this guy played Knights of the Old Republic in the slightest, he'd learn as soon as he landed on Korriban that the Sith are the utmost extreme of selfishness, greed, hunger for power, etc. Alright, now that that's out of the way, let's talk about the next line he misunderstands. Through strength, I gain power. For this segment, I want to show Carlin's cluelessness. Get ready.
Through strength, I gain power. You could probably take this as literally as you wanted, like, yeah, if I have stronger muscles than you, I can punch you more powerfully. But I don't think that's necessarily what they're going for, and I think it rings true in all of our lives when you think about it. The more you work at something, the higher you will rise, and that doesn't have to mean politically or at work or anything. It could be as simple as just having more knowledge than somebody.
Dude, your assessment is the exact opposite of what the Sith mean with this line. This is bizarre, because right after this, he goes on a tirade about fans who know more than him. Like me. But he still uses this as a dumb excuse to say that he's correct, based on his incorrect understanding of the code. Let's talk about what this part really means. Basically, the Sith believe that the pursuit of power is everything to them. To seek power, they must draw from the dark side, and use negative, aggressive, and selfish emotions like anger, hatred, and jealousy to gain power. As I've explained though, the pursuit of ultimate power is completely unachievable, so basically the Sith would just keep on going lower and lower, trying to find bigger and bigger ways to gain ultimate power. A lot was never enough. First you might conquer your world, but that was never truly satisfying, so you'd create an army and try to conquer the whole galaxy. But once that's done, that still isn't good enough, so you try going outside the galaxy, finding more unwilling people to conquer, and along the way, you will definitely lose any semblance of morality, as you'll forget how other beings feel or want. It'll be about your personal power. Do you see what I mean? The dark side is a trap for Force sensitives that's extremely easy to be caught in. So yes, gaining power is absolutely about dominating and conquering others. It's not just your personal fulfillment, as Carlin would have you believe. Next, let's talk about through power, I gain victory. Again, he just says the line means the opposite of what it actually does, and tries to spin it as positively as possible. Here's what it actually means. To the Sith, victory means proving your superiority over everyone, as that is the only true victory. That's the only way to gain victory to the Sith. Negotiating peacefully and having a truce with another entity is not a victory, because you failed to show that you are the stronger one. You opted for the easy way out to the Sith. This is what it means when Sith constantly turn against one another. It's the desire to prove that they are stronger than the others, and since your personal power is all that matters to you, there is no unity. That is what it means to be a Sith, and why the Sith always stab each other in the back. So with that being said, the Sith Code isn't looking any better. You should realize by now that the Code is completely unjust, selfish, and evil. Alright, now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about through victory my chains are broken. Let's talk about what that means, as it's something Carlin does not understand in the slightest. The chains, according to the Sith, represent one's restrictions, but breaking your chains does not simply mean being able to do whatever you want. It goes much further than that. The Sith wanted to free themselves to become the perfect being in every way. In Knights of the Old Republic in particular, Yuthura Ban will say that the perfect being will be the Sithari. The Sithari was essentially the Sith's version of the Chosen One. The confirmed Sithari was, surprise surprise, Darth Bane, as the prophecy of the Sithari said that the being in question would destroy the Sith and in turn make them stronger. That's what Bane did when he tricked Lord Khan into using the thought bomb and established the rule of two, as he believed it was the only sustainable way to preserve the Sith Order, as the stronger being would always come up on top in this scenario. If an apprentice killed their master, they would become the master by right. If the master killed their apprentice, it would prove that they were still the most powerful. In general, this is what this part of the code means. Every Sith strived to become the Sithari. That was the ultimate goal for them. So with that being said, let's talk about the final line, "The Force shall free me," which Carlin completely ignores. To sum this one up, those who strove to be perfect would be rewarded. As such, they must impose their own will on the Force, rather than following what the Force willed. That is the code of the Sith. Carlin closes the video by saying that the Sith stray away from the code, which is completely incorrect, and he says that they get corrupted in power, blah 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 blah. I have no idea what this guy is talking about. And there he closes his video. This video was hard to make, because I had to concentrate on relaying the Sith Code, but also have to put up with Carlin describing the Sith Code as the opposite of what it really is. Just like the Jedi Code, saying the words is one thing, understanding them is another. Knights of the Old Republic has the player learn Jedi and Sith ideology alike, and fully grasp both. Unless you skip over the dialogue, you will not misunderstand either. My KOTOR critique will come out one day, I'm still working on that, but to sum up this video, the Sith Code is selfish and evil by the standards of their universe, and our own if you took the Force out of it. David Gator, the writer who created the Sith Code, also partially based it off the views of a certain someone in his book Mein Kampf. Now, I've always had the opinion that in fiction, you should always assess characters and factions by the standards of their own universe, instead of basing it off of whatever they were inspired by, because that leads to a fairer assessment in my eyes. But the Sith Code was very clearly supposed to be extremely evil and disagreeable. So that's the Sith Code explained. Believe me, being a Sith is terrible. I hope you learnt something, and I've prevented many fans from growing misconceptions. With that being said, I'm JJ Plagiarisms, and until next time, what are stories but mystery boxes?
Under the mountain, a golden fountain, were you praying?